key context shifts is a overarching concept and methodology, much like the consumer life cycle or negative assumption is, in that you'll find that same concept applied in different ways, from context and carryover to email quadlytics even. There are a number of different ways that it's applied. The key context shifts is simply the awareness that, first, a person's behavior is dependent upon the context in which they're operating. Now, some might say that the person's behavior is dependent upon their perceptions, which is true, but a context is an aggregate perceptions, basically. A context is the amalgam of all their perceptions in one setting. And so, as such, understanding that behavior is driven automatically, neurologically, behavior is driven from the context. Let me give you an example. When somebody is a visitor in my home, if you were to come over to my house, your behavior would be extremely different automatically without you having to think about it. Your behavior would be very different than if I was a visitor in your home. If you were at your home and I came to your house, your behavior would be different than if you were a visitor in my home. Well, if that's a key context shift, then why isn't that translated online? We use it even in our nomenclature and our verbiage, but yet we don't necessarily apply it to our marketing. Which I mean, when somebody is a visitor in my domain, when somebody's a visitor on my website, as such, their behavior is immediately and automatically going to be different than when I'm a visitor in their domain, i.e. when I send them an email. Because when somebody's a visitor on my site, or let's say, for example, I'm advertising on somebody's site, the context is CNN.com, the context is Facebook.com. Well, my ad on that it has to be something different. Now, once they're a visitor on my page, one's a public forum. Once we move from a public forum, that's one context. Now that we move to my page, now they are a visitor in my domain, their behavior is going to shift. Maybe subtle, maybe slight, may not be very noticeable, but immediately and automatically their behavior will be different. And so the more we can do to address that, the better off we're going to be. Much the same way that once we get them to opt in to something and we're sending them an email, we are now a visitor in their domain. So we've moved from the public domain to the provider domain to the consumer domain. And those key context shifts are extremely critical when crafting our message, when crafting our sales funnels, when crafting our campaigns, when looking at the logic, when doing surveys, when simply interacting or engaging with this individual, understanding the contextual shifts, and understanding how in some people it may be slight or it may not be statistically relevant. In some audiences, in some niches, it could be extremely situationally relevant and or statistically significant, and drive a tremendously higher conversion rate by you being able to address and to identify those key context shifts and how they affect that particular niches and that particular individual's behavior, and as such, the content you produce to them. That is the key context shift.